Welcome everyone to another edition of Weathertex Wednesday Live Webinar. Today's subject is one that's quite topical within the building industry, exploring how modern methods of construction, MMC, sustainable design and net zero housing are shaping the future of residential construction. So a very topical subject. And joining us to talk about this, Christina Renger, founder and principal of Net Zero Design. Christina's got a wealth of extensive experience in sustainable architecture, healthy homes, high performance housing, and her passion for designing homes that balance aesthetics, functionality, and environmental performance is amazing. So thank you very much for joining us, Christina. We look forward to going through this subject with you this afternoon.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you very much for the invite. Looking forward to the discussion.
You're most welcome. For everyone online, please submit some questions via the webinar, via the live chat, and we'll hopefully get through those. But let's kick off. Christina, you've spent many years designing sustainable high-performance buildings. From your perspective, what are the biggest changes you've seen in residential design over the past decade, and why is sustainability now becoming central to good design trends?
So looking back, I think what has changed compared to 10 years ago is really that now sustainable design is expected really as good design and good build quality and not just nice to have, which is obviously, more work for designers and architects because they have to know all about all kinds of different topics, but it's also an opportunity to shape this space. Yes. And so there's more focus on health and comfort with indoor air quality, nature connection, as well as thermal comfort and also sustainable material selection. The other thing that changed is that the conversation has really evolved beyond just operational energy use, which is obviously important to reduce, but embodied carbon is now being increasingly discussed, and which is for emissions reduction, but more so important that we're really questioning what kind of materials are used, where do they come from, and what is good for people and the planet, as well as that prefab construction is emerging also in Australia, and this is shaped obviously by external pressures that rising energy costs, climate change, housing affordability and material prices. So that has all shaped that is now really, the challenge is that we meet these expectations with solutions where sustainability is really not an add-on, but designed in from the start.
We're talking about sustainable design strategies. What are they? What are the sustainable design strategies that deliver the biggest performance gain for the least cost or complexity? I know with Weathertex, we use the phrase occasionally, regularly, we're a sustainable cladding solution at no extra cost, because a lot of people see sustainability products as very expensive. So, what's your view on that, Christina?
Yeah, so it's more about quality. Our sustainability is really just like quality. And so how can we afford this? How can we design with good quality as well save costs? So less is more, quality over quantity. So firstly, it's important for each project to understand the client's brief and what are the goals for the project, and then refine the brief together to get the design right from the start, and design really small spaces that have just the right size, and do more with less. So that we really invest the money where it really adds value, performance, longevity, durability. For example, the envelope is important, design right from the start, because that's where the most costs are determined.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. And healthy building and non-toxic materials are obviously central to your work. how do you assess a material's health credentials?
So I think this is best explained with the circular economy principles, and they are defined by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation as, first of all, to design out waste. So it's really up to the designers to design in a way that is good and healthy for the people who live in the buildings, as well as for the environment, to have like low toxic materials, low carbon materials, durable materials, and really reduce the emissions by, for example, efficient manufacturing processes as well, and design out waste from the start, and then keep materials as the second. So that's the first principle. The second principle is to keep materials in use as long as possible. So design for durability and adaptability, I think, is also important to for future use, and that buildings are adaptable and for changing lifestyles, for example. And this third principle is that regenerate nature, so regenerate natural systems. So when we look at the supply chain, we can really look at not only reduce toxins, but create positive benefits beyond the building scale through the materials that we are choosing, like sustainable timber, bio-based materials, and create really find opportunities really to regenerate nature, not only reduce the impact.
Do you hold third-party certifications high in value from a design point of view?
So yes, timber chain of custody certification designers should look out for, as well as LCA's environmental product declarations, eco-labels such as Declare. And Weathertex, for example, has got the global GreenTag Platinum certification for the natural range. So things like that, where where transparency is important, what is really in the product, and where does it come from, local if possible, local supply chains, and ideally biodegradable as well.
Yeah, and so Weathertex ticks all those boxes. We also just recently achieved the Nature Positive certification via Global GreenTag as well, and we also had the Declare label. So third-party certifications for us is really important. Rather than us say how good we are, it's someone else validating our claims and having transparency around that, which, as you mentioned, is important from a design perspective.
Yep, that's taking up in Europe a lot, actually. For example, internationally, that these declarations are mandatory now. For example, in Europe is leading there, and they have a material passport now, where the recycling content, bio-based content has to be stated, as well as the global warming potential and reuse recycling potential as well. So I just came back from the World Sustainable Building Conference in Melbourne, and that was a topic there. There's a lot of things going on that's really more about declaration internationally as well. It would be good to have in Australia more.
Weathertex exports to a number of countries overseas, and one of them being Netherlands, and we're going through that process with our distributor over there at this point in time. So yeah, we're aware of what you're saying there.
Yep, very interesting. Netherlands, very, very forward-thinking country. I've just connected with some people there from TNO, Netherlands, which is similar to CSIRO.
Right, okay.
Yeah, circular, very, very forward-thinking country.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and ticking those boxes and us being able to provide those third-party certifications has been crucial to us to continue to supply in the Netherlands, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So talking about timber and import reliance of local timber, global demand for timber is climbing, and Australia's is relying more on import of timber. What, in your view, what does that mean for builders and specifiers over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yes, I mean, obviously the demand is rising because of renewable benefits, low carbon, and also biophilic benefits. And Australia has got, there's a projected market gap of 50% by 2050. And yes, I mean, imported timber is cheap. But there's the risk that it comes from countries with less stringent environmental standards. And I mean, in light of global disruptions, it's important to strengthen local supply chains. So designers, architects, and builders really have an opportunity to advocate for local timber use, sustainable local timber use, which is also the Institute of Architects is doing that through the Decarbonization Plan 2025 to 2050, for example, Green Building Council. And so we have an opportunity to really advocate for sustainable timber use and strengthen our local supply chains.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, focus on that and promoting that across our industry bodies across the country, which is fantastic.
Timber Queensland as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, Christina, a lot of your research, or part of your research, focuses on abundant and underutilized native Australian timbers. Which species are we overlooking in your view, and why haven't they been picked up?
Yes, I mean, firstly, maybe just a quick explanation of where my research interest comes from. I worked with a very innovative prefab manufacturer, Eco Cottages, at the Sunshine Coast, who maximized the use of native cypress pine in a circular economy workshop. And sadly, the founding director passed away, but it's just really made me look into more, how can we continue this? I learned a lot about cypress, and cypress is a good example because it's a native timber. It's very, has really good mechanical properties, but also is naturally termite resistant. So it's non-toxic. It doesn't require any chemicals. And on the bioregional scale, it has actually really high ecological value as well. So it's drought resistant. It stabilizes and improves the soil, and grows with eucalypts normally together. So it's really has really high ecological value. And so I found it really interesting I'm interested, my research interest is, how can we continue this as other species as well? It's not just cypress and Australian hardwoods, very high quality, but they're not used to their greatest potential. Like there's a lot of low value products, and but there's now new processing technologies that these can be used more efficiently. So in engineered wood products, for example, and so there's some interesting new developments that obviously take time, because the policy needs to be aligned, regulations needs to be aligned, but there's opportunities to really use especially all Australian timbers, but Australian native timbers more efficiently, and value add to plantation pine, for example. 90% of hardwood plantations are exported as wood chips, so there's opportunities really for higher value use and upgrading those, and more efficient and higher value use.
Absolutely. I guess it leads to a perception about low-grade timbers, Christina, and does low-grade timber mean low-quality building? How do you counter that, and where does low-grade timber generally outperform? I know Weathertex is one example of that in our manufacturing process.
Yeah, a good example to really use like byproducts and timber that is otherwise being wasted, that's not suitable for sawnwood. And in these processes, that's really what we need to do more of. And so this is for cladding products, but there's also really great potential for more structural applications through these new processing technologies that have been adapted to Australian species, spinnerless rotary veneer processing. So it means that for processing of, for example, small diameter logs, and use them in engineered wood products, there's great potential to in all kinds of engineered wood products. I mean, it's already CLT is already on the market, quite trendy in Australia, as well as glulam and this LVL, and so there's a lot, as well as biosips. They are in research and development. Arc Advanced Timber Hub, the University of Queensland is doing some really innovative work there, and DPI has developed this processing technology. So engineered wood products is wood fiber insulation is another one that's also imported currently. So there's a lot of opportunities across all kinds of different scales, really, to use more efficiently what we have, and value add and higher value use.
I was just looking up, Joseph Lawrence is doing a lot of good things in that, who heads up, I'm just trying to think of the name, the Australian Forest and Wood Innovations. He's the executive director there, and they're doing a lot of good things, or about to do a lot of things, which we were hoping to get involved from a modern methods of construction's point of view. Yeah. So what would it take for local supply chains to carry meaningful share of cladding and structural timber, and who needs to move first, in your view?
Yes, what would it take? I mean, the markets need to be created. So really advocating more for local timber use and finding more applications. Design in a smart way that these products are being used efficiently, and then create more examples, more demonstration projects of sustainable timber use and new modern methods of construction, examples, prefab systems. I
think demonstrating products is imperative. Joseph's part of the University of Tasmania, who's driving this one. We've also done some work with the University of Queensland, who's utilising timber products from modern methods of constructions and the utilisation of timber. So that plays a key role for architects, designers and builders to understand sustainable timber and how it's used in that type of processes.
Yes, and there's already a successful prototype in northern New South Wales, I think.
Correct, yeah.
And it'd be great to see how this project is further shaping up.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving into modern methods of construction and MMC, obviously it's becoming a bigger conversation across Australia. Why do you think it's gathering momentum at this point in time?
Well, it's seen as a potential solution to improve productivity through improved quality, reduced waste, faster delivery. And so it gives some of the answers to address the housing crisis. And obviously, we're not as advanced as other international leading countries such as Sweden. So it takes a while for Australia to create that momentum, to create that scale, because the regulations need to catch up, and policies, regulations, financing, that all needs to be aligned. I see an opportunity really for increased sustainable timber use in modern methods of construction, because it's lightweight, there's new engineered wood products, and has all the low carbon benefits and biophilic benefits. And so to really reduce that waste and substitute not only timber construction, but also hybrid systems. So there's a real opportunity to increase that market share in the prefab sector. What is important, obviously, with modern methods of or prefab in general, that you also design for it from the start. So similar to sustainable design. At MMC, prefab construction actually just it brings out what's really important for sustainable design, because you need to get everything right at the front, and then you can optimize the costs there and the quality.
It's certainly gathering a lot more momentum, Christina, within Australia in the last 12 months. And as you mentioned, Sweden and other countries around Europe, Netherlands, that we supply into, are utilising our product for prefab. And Australia's got a little way to go, but I see with the housing crisis, it's one unique way that we can potentially help provide more housing quicker, time saving, less on-site disruption, as you mentioned.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry.
And just maybe, obviously there's, because it's capital intensive, the bigger companies have an advantage, obviously. Yeah.
And I think with the bank, CBA particularly getting involved, that's added a great impetus into the ability to get people getting more loans for prefab housing as well, mums and dads.
Yeah, so financing, there's contracts, I think, as under development that are more aligned to prefab, because it's currently everything is just designed around conventional construction, so with certifications and progress payments and etc. So if that all gets more aligned, that will definitely help the building code as well.
You touched on this a little bit before, but just to re-go, where are the biggest gains do you see as efficient resource in MNC? So material waste, labour, build time, or other things that you've identified?
Yes, all of the above. And and in particular, I think really to increase timber use because of all the biophilic benefits and low carbon benefits and sustainable harvesting. So it's certified timber. It has a lot of qualities. And it's also really innovative. It was very much represented as well at the World Sustainable Building Conference, that bio-based materials and timber as a key material really play a big role in really helping to solve global challenges such as climate change and biodiversity loss. Because I think timber. Sustainably sourced timber is the only way we can really, finding a way to see construction, the built environment aligned with sustainable timber production. That is really, I think, the key to solve a lot of the future issues.
Thank you, Christina. A couple of questions that's come through. Jamie Harris, hi to Jamie. Why aren't we using more recycled timbers in buildings for structural elements?
For structural elements, well, I think it's mostly cost, because there's treatments, etc. So recycled timber is a little bit more expensive, and just purely from a cost perspective, I think. But there's waste streams. I mean, this is another thing that is being taken up in Europe. They look at different waste streams, and there is a lot of potential also for recycled timber in different forms. So, and what then is the most advantage if we don't use treatments? So that's where again where hardwood comes into play,
Sure.
because it saves a lot of money to just being able to not in the recycling and reprocessing process not to remove toxins and chemicals, and it's, for example, wood fiber insulation as well. There's
Yes.
a lot of cost. It's just treatment, removing that and recycled content. Yeah, but nice features as well. So
Yeah. There's
definitely
a comment
potential.
here, Christina, Richard Jeffries. It's also difficult to stress grade recycled timber, was a comment.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, which is different again in engineered wood products. Because they are different. It's a different way of manufacturing, so
Yeah.
more potential there as well.
So there's one more question from B. I like the sound of using timber in MMC. I've attended a session where light gauge steel was discussed as the sustainable option, in less weight of a solid structural steel.
Yeah.
And then, so I'll let you comment on that one.
Sorry, but what was the question? And
So, like the sound of timber being used, they've attended a session where light gauge steel was discussed as the sustainable option.
So why is it? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's obviously can be reused. We need to put more upfront embodied energy in it. So the lower hanging fruit is, I think, to work with timber, because we don't have much time and to spend that embodied energy. But if there's other issues with steel that are more difficult if with in the envelope, because there's thermal bridging, and this is not only from a thermal performance point of view, but hygrothermal performance because of the vapor transmission. So there's weak points that can actually, where condensation can happen, and that's where timber again is has an advantage because it's a much better thermal insulator.
The next part of that question from B, Christina, is they have also said the MMC industry is running at 50% capacity. Can you comment on that?
50% capacity, this is probably because the confidence is not there to use it to its full potential. So because financing hasn't fully aligned, and so the market hasn't got that confidence yet, I would think, to move forward. But I haven't seen that 50% figure. That would be interesting actually to see, and where these figures are, like if that is what kind of prefab systems.
Well, I'll share with you, B's. We'll connect after this, and with B, who's made that comment. There's one other question before we wrap up. Do you see materials made from agricultural byproducts fitting into net zero building strategies, and what criteria matter most when assessing the real world viability?
This is also quite an interesting topic that was discussed at the Sustainable Building Conference. Bio-based materials generally yes, they do have their potential. There's more risk in terms of moisture and condensation. So it's really a holistic strategy that is needed, a design strategy to optimize the building for particularly hygrothermal performance and to avoid mold. And that obviously needs to be tested as well when these systems are being developed. There's other discussions happening in terms of carbon, which are also quite interesting, because if the carbon benefits there are, compared to timber, are probably a little bit overstated, because timber, there's other factors in timber overlooked or understated, which are the the ecosystem value and the growth, the carbon storage from growing from biogenic storage, not only in the construction materials but also in the trees. And that is currently being understated. So it's interesting that discussion that they have their place, but there's different difficulties to deal with, and yeah. So it's a holistic picture needed.
Richard Jeffrey just commented, I work with Richard's comments. I work with SIPFORM. We're currently running at around 30% capacity. Part of the difficulty is, in his view, is Bob, in the Ute, builders need to be more educated on MMC, which is, it's gathering momentum, Richard, and what Christina's talked about and what Prefab Australia is doing, and a whole heap of bodies around the country are trying to promote. But yeah, we've got a long way to go, haven't we?
Yes, I mean, one comment on that. The education around that, and I think it's really important to look at it in a way that they are not competing. Traditional construction is not competing with prefab, because MMC is a very broad term. You know, it's from single components to panels to fully volumetric, and they can actually, prefab construction at different scales can complement conventional construction. So it won't happen overnight, but there's different scales where parts and components can be integrated and outsourced, and that's how builders then can minimize the risk. So yeah, it's really not about competition. It's about collaboration and improving efficiency and faster delivery and quality overall in the building sector.
Thank you. We'll wrap it up there. Christina, thank you very much for joining us. We probably could have spoke for another hour or two.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot
Thank
to
you
talk
so
about.
much for the invite. Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, your knowledge to share with us is amazing, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us for this webinar.
Thanks, Jason. It was great to discuss this topic. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us online. We hope you enjoyed this session, and have a good afternoon. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah,
See
bye-bye.
you.